Namaste, students. I'm so happy to have you here in our Science Explainer class today. We're going to talk about something really wonderful, how plants survive in all sorts of different and sometimes very tough places. It's not just about passing your exams, you know? It's about understanding the magical natural world right outside our windows in our daily lives. So get your notebooks and pens ready, and let's jump right in.
Here are the 5 main topics we will learn today. First, habitats and plant adaptations. Second, terrestrial plants that grow on land. Third, aquatic plants that live in water. Fourth, a very fun science activity. And finally, a complete exam revision.
All right, let's start with Section 1, Habitats and Plant Adaptations. Let's understand exactly where plants live and why they need to change to survive.
Look at this beautiful water lily in a peaceful pond. Have you ever wondered why she loves the water so much? Every morning, she opens those soft petals to the warm sunlight. Her roots are fixed deep down in the mud to keep her steady. And notice those broad, flat leaves? They're like little green boats, aren't they? They help her float nicely and catch plenty of sunlight to make food, while the water keeps her cool. She is perfectly suited for her watery home.
Now please note down these 2 very important definitions in your notebooks. First is habitat. Simply put, a habitat is the natural home of a plant, where it naturally grows. Second is adaptation. Adaptation means the small changes a plant makes in its body to survive in a particular place. Think of it like this. When it gets very cold in winter, what do? You put on a thick sweater, right? That is you adapting. But plants can't walk to a shop, so they change their own leaves or stems or roots to survive. Let's understand this carefully.
Okay, moving on to Section 2. Let's step out of the pond, travel onto dry land, and look at terrestrial plants.
Terrestrial just means growing on land. Let's start with the plains, right where most of us live. Plants here usually have broad, flat leaves to catch lots of sunlight. But some have a neat trick. Trees like the neem and maple shed all their leaves once a year, usually in winter, to survive the harsh weather. We call these deciduous trees. Say it with me slowly. Deciduous. Now, trees like the banyan or mango don't shed all their leaves at once. They stay green all year round, so we call them evergreen trees.
Now, let's travel away from the plains. Notice the huge difference between these 2 harsh environments. We have a tall pine tree living in very cold hilly areas. See how it's shaped like a cone? Wide at the bottom, pointed at the top? Can you guess why? It's so that heavy snow can just slide right off without breaking the branches. Because of this cone shape, we call them conifers. Then we have a cactus. It lives in the very hot, dry desert where water is so scarce. It looks completely different from the pine tree, doesn't it?
Let's look at the clever cactus a bit more closely. Please remember these 4 points, my dear students, because this question is very frequently asked in exams. First, the cactus doesn't have normal leaves. Its leaves are modified into sharp spines. This stops it from losing water. Second, that thick, fleshy green part, that's actually the stem. It stores water, and since it's green, it makes the food instead of the leaves. Third, it has a thick, waxy coating, kind of like a raincoat, to lock the moisture inside. And fourth, it has very long roots that dig deep into the ground to find hidden water. Isn't nature just amazing? Let's leave the dry desert and visit the wet coasts. In one area, we see mangroves growing in sticky, marshy mud. The clay soil here is very wet and salty. Normally, roots go down into the ground, right? But here, the thick clay has almost no air. So the roots actually grow upwards, right out of the soil, so they can breathe. We call these special roots pneumatophores. The P is silent. Try saying it. Pneumatophores. Breathing roots. In another area, we have the tall coconut tree on sandy beaches. It needs very strong, extensive roots to hold tight in the loose sand and survive the strong ocean winds.
Let's pause for a second. I want you to think about this logically. Based on what we just learned, would a coconut tree grow well in a wet, sticky marsh?
If you said no, you are absolutely right. Its roots are made to grip loose sand, not to breathe above sticky clay like a mangrove. See how important adaptation is? Okay, moving right along to Section 3, Aquatic Plants. Let's dive back into the water.
Aquatic plants are plants that live in water, and they have 3 main types. Let's check out the first 2. First, we have fixed plants, like the water lily and lotus. Their roots are fixed tight into the mud at the bottom, and they have long, hollow stems to keep those broad leaves floating safely on top. Second, we have floating plants, like the water hyacinth. These are not fixed to the soil at all.
They are very lightweight, and their bodies act like little spongy air cushions, letting them just float freely on the water's surface wherever the wind takes them. The third type is the underwater plant, just like the hydrilla. These plants live completely submerged deep down inside the water. Their roots are fixed at the bottom, but look closely at their leaves. See how they are long and narrow, almost like thin green ribbons? This lets the heavy water currents flow right through them without tearing them apart. And here is a super interesting fact. These underwater leaves have absolutely no stomata. Remember, stomata are the tiny pores plants usually use to breathe.
So this brings up a really wonderful question. If the hydrilla doesn't have any stomata, how in the world does it breathe? How does it exchange gases underwater? Take a few seconds and just think about it.
Did you figure it out? The plant actually absorbs gases directly through its entire body surface. The whole plant acts like a breathing skin. Incredible, right? All right, let's head into Section 4 for a fun science activity that you can do yourselves. To really understand how leaves adapt to save water, try this very simple experiment at home. Take 3 kinds of leaves. Get a thick, waxy one, like aloe vera. Get a broad, thin one, like a banana or hibiscus leaf. And get a needle-like leaf, like from a pine tree. Put all 3 on a plate in an open area and just leave them alone for 24 hours. The next day, you'll see the broad, thin leaf has dried up and curled the most. This perfectly shows why desert and hill plants have waxy or needle-like leaves. It completely stops them from drying out.
You all have been such wonderful, patient listeners today. Now that we understand the concepts, let's go to our final part, Section 5, and do a really quick exam revision to make sure you score top marks. Please pay close attention here and make sure to write down these definitions in your notebooks. Writing these scientific terms perfectly is the secret to full marks. Adaptation means changing features to cope with the environment. Conifers are the cone-shaped trees we find in hilly areas. Pneumatophores are the special breathing roots of mangrove trees, and deciduous trees are those that shed their leaves once a year. Please remember these.
Now, this is a very common exam question, distinguishing between terrestrial and aquatic plants. The trick here is to always give clear examples. For terrestrial, write that they grow on land, like in plains or deserts, and give examples like mango or cactus. For aquatic, write that they grow in water and list the 3 types, fixed, floating, and underwater, along with examples like lotus and hydrilla. Doing this makes your answer complete and makes the examiner very happy.
Let's quickly revise the why questions once again. Examiners love these. Why does a cactus have spines? To reduce water loss. Why do mangroves have roots sticking out of the ground? Because the sticky clay soil lacks oxygen. Why do floating plants float? Because they have spongy, air-filled bodies. And here's a tricky one. Why are the stomata on a lotus leaf on the upper surface? Well, because the lower surface is stuck touching the water, so it has to breathe from the top.
Okay, here is a special HOTS, higher order thinking skills question for you. Imagine you take a cactus from the dry desert and you plant it in a very wet, rainy forest. What do you think will happen? Think about those deep roots searching for water and that fleshy stem meant to store it. In a flooded forest, its roots would just rot, and its stem would take in way too much water and burst. It simply isn't adapted to live there. And because every single plant is so perfectly adapted to its own home, we absolutely must protect these habitats. Think about the massive tropical Amazon rainforest. It literally produces about 20% of the Earth's oxygen. It's called the lungs of our planet Earth for a reason. If we destroy these natural homes, plants can't adapt fast enough and we will lose them forever. So, as our world's climate changes, how do you think the plants in your own neighborhood will have to adapt next? Keep observing, keep asking questions, and never stop learning. Namaste, students.